Hello, everyone. This is LeiLani Cauthen, your host, the CEO of Learning Counsel, News Media and Research, as well as an EduJedi Leadership Society Grand Master. So this today is Activity J10, What You Don't Know About Software Can Hurt Your School Scene. So this is going to be a discussion about hostile characteristics within the EdTech field that could be affecting schools and districts. So we're going to go through the dictionary definitions, but we're also just going to have a conversation today about hostile characteristics and what are they and what's happening in this whole field, particularly since so many schools have been hit with cyber attacks and other kinds of nefarious things. So we have with us today, hopefully Ivy Nelson joining soon from Belton School District, Don Wahlers, who is the District Supervisor of Curriculum Instruction, STEM K-12, from Ewing Public Schools in New Jersey, and William Dembi, who is a security architect from Idaho Digital Learning Academy. Nice to have you, William. We were chatting about you earlier because we know Brian Gravitt pretty well. We met him when we were up there. It was a wonderful day back in, I don't know, it's like almost 3 years ago now, when we were on the road. And also Dr. Wendy Oliver, who's the Chief Learning Officer from Edison Learning. So the way this is going to run today is we want Wendy and Brady Bajusik, who's their Director of Instruction and Advisement from Edison Learning, to give us a little bit of an overview from the professional grade side of what's going on in the industry. And then we're going to introduce our education speakers, have them give us a little warm up of what they see going on, and then we're going to dig in to the work. So let's start with you, Wendy. Give us a little update about Edison Learning.
Sure. Well, first, LeiLani, thank you so much for allowing us to participate and be part of this experience. I'm so excited that we can contribute to the field in such a way that is definitely needed, especially during this time. I am the Chief Learning Officer with Edison Learning. Edison, believe it or not, has been around about 30 years. And, you know, we've seen a lot change over the years, but, you know, currently probably our biggest area is where we help provide digital courses and our instructors as well that are certified in multiple states, because there seems to be such a teacher shortage. You know, on the commercial grade side, that seems to be the biggest need right now. But in addition, we also work directly with districts as their partners, and I reiterate partners, especially as we go through today's discussion. We have a little over 150 courses in grades 6 through 12. And those courses can either be taught by our certified instructors, or we partner with districts for professional development and then helping them build their capacity for their own online learning programs. So I'm excited today to show you some things around professional grade software and online courses, especially as we talk about security and some of the advantages to working with software as a service. So thank you, LeiLani, and we'll get into some fun stuff a little bit later.
Great. Yeah, so we'll be talking a little bit about your system. I'm showing on the screen right now sort of one of the actual slides, you know, from live out of your system in terms of what you've built. So let's get into the actual conversation. I know the image for this event looks pretty ominous, but it's supposed to, because we're talking about hostile characteristics. So it kind of goes with the EduJedi theme to be a world looking like it's under attack. So we have with us today Ivy Nelson. Hi, Ivy. Good to see you again. Hey. What we're going to do is have you give a little intro of yourself, what's going on at Belton School District in Missouri, and then we'll go to Don, then we'll go to William, and then we'll start the whole dialogue about what's happening with hostile characteristics. Okay, so you go first, Ivy. Give us a little background.
So I am Ivy Nelson. I work currently in the Belton School District, which is in Missouri on the south side of Kansas City. We serve a diverse population of students. We have about 4,500 students and then another 600 to 700 staff members on top of that. My role is the instructional technology manager. So I oversee the instructional technology, and I work closely with the technology department and the school improvement, often districts call it curriculum departments. And then, so we support technology. When last year, at the beginning of last year, we moved fully to one-to-one, one device for every student in our district K-12. We had previously just been one elementary school, and then our secondary students all had devices, but now we have every elementary school. So we added a lot of devices, kind of trying to manage all of that, but then manage that wild west of all of the data privacy and things when you are talking about moving everything to virtual school and, you know, having all these things to support all of this learning for students who might be in person, might be at home, because that's kind of the model that our district allows students to choose which one. And so, you know, trying to keep everything safe and then being consistent for not just privacy's sake, but equity's sake throughout the district as well.
Yeah, same conundrum we're hearing from all over the country. So just a question before I move on to Dawn. Are you then having to do simultaneous teaching? Are teachers doing that?
We did last year. This year, we have a very small percentage of students who wanted to be virtual. And so we are actually using another company to do our virtual education this year. And so all of our staff are teaching in-person students.
Okay. But you're like on the readiness path of like, what if something else happens? And then we're going to.
Well, yes. And we actually did. So in our state, for students who do have to quarantine or be isolated or whatever, we have like a homebound instruction. And so we have just hired some additional teachers to just do homebound. So just those students who are quarantined or have tested positive for COVID, but still able to do school. And we have a training for them this afternoon, actually, because they were just board approved. And so this afternoon, I'm working with them and figuring out, okay, what all do you need access to? What are we, you know, like, what does this all entail? Because it's going to be any kid from K-12, any subject, anything that they're going to be teaching. So
Wow, that's the new model.
yeah.
Interesting for you. Okay, thank you for that. All right, so Dawn, can you give us a little background on Ewing Public?
I'm Don Wahlers. I'm the STEM supervisor for Ewing Public Schools in New Jersey. We're what's considered an urban rim district. We're actually West Trenton. So we have a lot of the issues that you'll find at the urban school system. We were not very technology involved prior to the pandemic. We were still having teachers sign out carts of laptops and Chromebooks for instruction, and a cart being shared between a number of teachers. But due to the pandemic, we have now gone one-to-one. This year, we will not have any remote learning to begin with, because in the state of New Jersey, remote learning is not permitted in the school system currently. But we're on that readiness pathway, because even though we're going to try to deal with quarantine students with home instructors, it will soon outpace the number of home instructors we have. So we're prepared to go back to hybrid or remote or whatever we need to do. It's an exciting time. Have increased our network, our bandwidth, our devices. We're putting a lot of money into the software and hardware. So it's going to be a very interesting and exciting year.
Like riding a bucking bronco all across the United States. Okay, good. Thank you for that. All right, so William, Dembi, tell us a little bit about what you're involved with and what's happening up there in Idaho.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, all. My name is William Dembi, and I'm the security architect for Idaho Digital Learning. We're a local educational agency based out of Idaho. So, to open up a dialogue with Ivy a bit, we're like that company you're contracting with for virtual learning, only funded by our state, is the objective. And, even prior to the pandemic, our mission was to offer effective and equitable learning to all students in the state of Idaho. I'm the only CISSP certified security professional in Idaho K through 12. And as far as the challenges we have with cybersecurity and data privacy, I've been working with those for almost 4 years now, and I'm excited to have a dialogue with you all.
Yeah, and you can probably also talk about it all the way at the state, virtualized systems, cloud-based delivery as well as what's going on at the server-based world in schools, right? Because you're connected into schools as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, we're going to lean on you a bit. You know, I have enough security background to be scary about it, but I think you probably have even more than I do. So we're hoping that you volunteer some parts of these conversations. Okay, so let's move into this whole dictionary piece. The issue is that what a lot of school districts don't know can hurt them. They're not really aware. I mean, the whole country moved to virtual and remote and pretty much all digital in the last year. And there's a lot of newbies in the game. So we really want to speak to them a bit. But there's a lot of definitions in here, and there's a lot of permutations to it for your legal liabilities. As a school district, you might not be aware of even when you purchase something, right? So that's a big part of the conversation. So we'll start off with the first definition, which is, you know, adware. This category is the characteristics that can intentionally harm or intrude upon that individual student user, teacher user, faculty user. And it starts with adware. So those are things in apps, right, that pop up and you don't want kids to be seeing those particular types of adult ads unsolicited on your devices. So let's do a round of talking about that kind of thing and how we should be posturing as schools to address this particular issue. So Ivy, why don't you go first?
We actually recently, just this year, we got a new content filter that will filter some of that material at school and at home. So it's installed on all student and staff devices. And it's still very early in the game. This is the first day of the second week of school. And we still have devices that have not gone home to a lot of schools. We're still deploying those for the year. So we haven't gotten much feedback yet, but we are anticipating that parents especially will be a lot happier with this. And it makes me feel a lot better with this as far as when devices go home, and especially with those young students or students, you know, even older students that don't have the best habits or the best guidance with those devices. So that's something that we have done very recently to try to get ahead of that.
Okay, thanks. All right, Dawn.
Yeah, this has been, for us, it's been a major issue because our sites have been blocked that we can use based on the adware coming through those sites. And as a result, it's really lessened hugely the amount of options we have online. So we are trying to go to something that filters that out so we don't have to just block the sites anymore. But I'm really hoping it works because blocking the sites has really limited us in what we can bring to our students. So
Yeah,
I
one of
don't
the
have any
prime
information. We don't start till next week, but I'm hoping it works because we need it.
Yeah. And from what I know, one of the primary ones is YouTube, right? And YouTube currently isn't offering a facilitation of that for schools. So they do that for you. Yeah. Yeah. That's the biggest one we know is blocked frequently, and teachers just lose their minds over that because they want to use videos off there. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, William, what is your take on adware?
Yeah, pretty nasty stuff. And if I get too much into the weeds on this, feel free to call me out. So besides, adware displaying, maybe some sketchy images or things that we wouldn't want our students to see, it's actually the most common form of getting malware on your systems. The technical term is called a malvertisement. So a student may click on an ad thinking they'll go to a website with objectionable content, but worse than that, it'll actually download a virus. So it's really something to watch out for. As far as one way we address it is for our networks, we set up DNS filtering at the DNS server level that does automatically block a lot of these sketchy websites.
Okay. So that's a little tip for the day, everybody, DNS filtering. And is it also true that you sort of have to run sort of an education pattern on all your teachers and students? Is this something that maybe needs to be told to people? Like, don't go clicking on stuff like that. You're all nodding your heads. Yes. Okay, we'll just say that's the thing. All right, so let's move on to the next one, which is browser hijacking. So those are plugins that can change or modify your browser settings, like Pinterest, right? And then you're on something else and you have Pinterest on your machine. And as soon as you go to click on something else, that little Pinterest little bubble shows up. And so when you go to click it, you don't click on the thing you want, you accidentally pop up Pinterest again, which you didn't want. And so it's a little, this is where navigation for students comes in, that gets weird. They go off in some tangent somewhere because of these browser plugins. So let's do a little round of that as a conversation. Let's do reverse order this time. So William, you want to go first?
Yeah. And a lot of times I can just tell right off the bat if a computer is infected, if the browser's been hijacked. So a common symptom you'll see is a Google search bar that doesn't follow the appropriate theme, right? So you'll see kind of a sketchy search bar, and that browser has been hijacked. And do we want to talk about prevention methods or identifying it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that comes down to endpoint protection. Obviously, you'll want to, if possible, configure your browsers and workstations to not allow the student or account that's logged into it to make those changes, if possible.
Okay, makes sense. And yeah, that can be done centrally, not just on the device, right? Okay. Okay, good. All right. So coming over to Dawn, what are your comments on this particular hostile thing?
Well, we've been lucky. A couple of years ago, this was a problem we had, but our central IT has put the locks on it. So I don't think we've had any issues with it that I know of in quite a while. But once again, that's like anything else. Once Central starts doing the lockdowns and limiting, it also tends to spiral out to other areas that are unexpected. I can't really speak particularly for this, but I know that happens whenever they lock options down centrally. But in this case, it's been working pretty well from what I've seen.
Okay. Okay, good. All right. So let's come back to Ivy on this particular topic, and then Wendy or Brady.
So we have primarily iPads in our district. So K-8 have iPads, and we just don't experience this as much with those as we do on our laptops. So our high school students have MacBooks, but they are not the administrators, so they can't install any of those browser extensions and things like that. Which is good. And then our staff members, though, so teachers that have MacBooks, they can install, they're the administrators on their devices. So we do have issues with this where teachers will install that, and it's actually malware. And just like William said, it will just kind of look weird. And we have a lot of staff will like screenshot things, and I'll get emails like, this doesn't look quite right. Is it, and it's like, hey, that's excellent. You totally, thought something was weird. And so you hesitated and you thought to ask first. And that's great troubleshooting and great, ways of navigating this, environment online where there are lots of things that can be hostile and bad for you. So that is good. But we do still experience it quite a bit with, people inadvertently installing malicious content onto their devices, but it would just be staff, because those are the ones that are able to install things that we don't install. And then there are some extensions. We are a Google Apps for Education entity, and so we do have lots of like Chrome extensions or extensions inside of different apps that we have to allow on the district side. And so we will, I'm one of the people who will ask for something to be opened up, and then like I'll test it on my end. And if it's instructionally what we're looking for and what we're needing, and nothing bad comes along with it, then I will put in that request to have that opened up for all staff or staff and students.
Good process. Okay, so Wendy and Brady, coming back to you with Wendy going first. Let's go back to the adware thing and browser hijacking. I forgot to include you in the adware part. So.
Oh, yeah, that's fine, LeiLani. I was just thinking, honestly, as the rest of the panel was speaking, it reminded me, and I won't tell you how long ago this was, but when I was over IT at the building level in a very large district, and I started having deja vu as everyone was talking. So I feel your pain. These are such challenging things to deal with, especially on a large scale. And I would just say, LeiLani, and this goes back to a previous discussion that we've had, there's really something to be said for making sure that the staff and the faculty are very aware that data is a form of currency. And if you can get them out of that habit of free, I think that helps tremendously. Of course, they have to have additional resources in order to do that. But that's where, when we look at adware and we look at browser hijacking, that's where my mind goes. But I'll also tell you that not only do I oversee the content development, but I also oversee an instructional staff for Edison Learning. And just to share with you that even in the commercial, the for-profit side of the world with full-time teachers, we have the same challenges as a corporation around adware and browser hijacking. So in a lot of ways, these are lifelong learning skills that you're teaching students and teachers as well, because it's certainly something we deal with in the corporate sector too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're, my teachers are always looking for the next best thing. How can they help their students, and looking for additional resources for them. And, over the past year, we've sat down with them and talked in depth about, all of the pluses and the minuses to that, free software, and the risks that can occur with them. And so, a lot of the times, it ultimately comes back to, hey, let's keep things in the system that, are commercial grade, that are high quality, that we know, we have licenses for and agreements with. So, and it's a great conversation to have with our students as well, and making them aware. I think that's something not only for teachers to have that conversation, but, as parents as well. When they do go online and play games or whatnot, what are they getting into there as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, so the training is really important. Knowledge and understanding is really important. But I want to go back to William and just go a little bit deeper in this, because I think the thing that often happens in schools is they go to look for like a printer driver because they have a new machine or something like that. And if you've ever needed to download a new printer driver or any sort of driver or update to software, there's a lot of people that don't understand that there's nefarious sites out there proposing download this driver here. But if you look at the URL, it's like some phishing company that's going to just give you some sort of browser hijacking, watch your keystrokes, and steal your bank information. So it can get pretty weird.
So I could go ahead and answer that question. It's actually really topical, because one of the biggest hacks going on right now, the initial infection vector, is Windows print spooler vulnerability, right? So that's a real topic. And again, this is where locking down workstations appropriately for that user account will help prevent that nasty stuff. And of course, education, right? The why behind a lot of this stuff's important, not just the what. And the more IT staff can articulate the why in addition to the what, you'll be in better sync with your teachers. I also wanted to circle back to some of the app vetting Brady mentioned. There's laws and regulations and, responsibility we have when we're protecting our students' data and the privacy of their data. And for us at IDLA, if we add software to a system or service to our environment, we put them through a app vetting workflow to ensure that, let's say, it is an app that may collect data for students under the age of 13. We want to make sure that application is COPA compliant. And that's just a really quick example, but it's something we do, and we've also trained our teachers on the importance of why we do that.
Biggies are COPA, SIPA, FERPA, HIPAA. Do we all know those things? There's some biggies, right? Those are all laws. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for giving a little more color around that. Okay, I'm going to move on to cookies, and I want to.
I just want to jump in and kind of reiterate things that William and Brady have said as critical with the education aspect. A lot of times IT departments work very hard to secure a system, but it's not necessarily communicated out. If a district doesn't have someone in place to communicate what's happening and why, teachers don't see that stuff behind the background. All they see is that they're limited in what they're allowed to do, and they don't understand why they're being limited. And it's important from a number of aspects, but right off the bat, they should understand and be educated on all of these threats and why these are occurring and the results on why they're limited. They have no idea how many thousands of times, within an hour, their system is being hit, or the district system is being hit just by people sending out hostile hits on not even trying to target the district, just targeting anything. They don't understand how a lot of this works. So they don't necessarily understand what's going on. It's just being done. And I can't emphasize how important it is for districts to have that communication to teachers so that they understand, let alone, as Brady said, then teaching the students about it, which is the next key element. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. That transparency and not being an autocrat or dictator. Thou shalt not have this. Don't ask why. No one likes that. No one.
But it's not the IT department's fault. They're hired to secure the system. They're not hired to educate the teachers. The district has to make sure there's somebody in between that does that.
Yeah, Ivy, you're shaking your head. It's probably you. You're doing that. And William, you're probably doing it for everything you have over there at IDLA.
Yeah, I was going to say once a month we actually do a teacher training required for all of our teachers. A component of that being cybersecurity and data privacy that I lead. So every month they're up to date. As a tangible example, most recently we disabled their ability to authorize OAuth apps in G Suite. But we explained why, and so far, they've been amicable to requesting us whitelist those apps for them when needed.
On a one-by-one basis rather than everybody willy-nilly themselves.
And
Good.
LeiLani, I'm going to reiterate, I think that was an excellent point that Donald made too, that oftentimes IT and curriculum and instruction or training, professional development are separate. They're distinctly separate within a district. And you're not always as lucky to have a William who will also do that training. So that communication is so critical. And again, it's the same thing even on the corporate side. You have to have your IT and your security staff communicating across the board, or someone in place to do that.
Yeah, you have to, because executives need to act sometimes on an emergency basis with authority, and they just do it. But they won't usually maintain their authority very long if they don't explain after the emergency is over. Right? Because then people are like, we're still under emergency. I mean, we're all living this right now, right? Globally, we're still under emergency. Why? Can you please explain? So, there's that sort of thing on this, computer security side, curriculum people not having access to stuff that they spent 80 hours building lessons in. What? They're going to lose their minds. Okay, so let's go over to the actual document. Can you guys see this on the screen now? We're going to move on to cookies. we're all more familiar with cookies in the last, what is it, almost 2 years now, because every site you hit wants to give you cookies almost. And cookies are bad. Not everyone understands cookies, and certainly almost everyone that I know is just going, yeah, accept a cookie. Just accept the cookies. Cookies sound nice. So let's Don, I'm going to start with you. Let's talk about cookies. Don?
Again, like you said, they don't sound so bad. It's like, so often they'll ask users, is it okay? And basically, I guess it's really up to the people making the decisions to make sure that whatever they're providing for the teachers to use can operate without these cookies being active, and choosing well based on that. But once again, it comes down to educating teachers and students about the downsides and what could happen, how bad this could turn out to be.
Exactly. Okay, so Ivy, what are your comments on cookies?
We do in our training, we talk about this along with like click-through acceptance, kind of like Donald said, like you just accept. And that, and we talk about how that can be dangerous, and that when you say allow or accept, that can essentially be like signing a contract, and putting yourself at risk. And if you're not reading, all that's entailed there, you don't know what is happening on the other end or on the backside of things. So that's how we kind of talk to, and the example that we use when we do our data privacy trainings.
Okay, all right. So William, you probably have a lot more information on this.
Probably too much, but I think this concept is even bigger than K through 12 in education, right? This is really what value does data have? As Wendy was mentioning, this data is currency. So what does that mean? How do we share it? Should we share it? As far as that annoying banner goes, I'm not sure if it was 2 years ago, but whenever GDPR, which is EU's privacy legislation, went through, that's when you started seeing that banner, which I think is a very crazy thought that all of this stuff has always been going on for the last 10 years, but it wasn't until we had visibility into the use of data that now we have some choices behind it. I will say, cookies also have positive uses. That's why you don't have to log into a website every time and input your username and password. So it's something that can be good, but if it is used to, affect your data privacy, make you agree to something you don't necessarily agree with, that's when the tool becomes an issue. I would like to take a time here to explain, why privacy is important. I think that's overlooked a lot, that we say data privacy, data privacy, data privacy, and again, the why is necessary. I read an article in the Wall Street Journal called "How Do You Reduce Your Price of College Tuition? Just Ask." And ultimately what it comes down to is college tuition is malleable in 2021, where you can get discounts by asking your enrollment counselor, etc. But due to data, students actually receive a price sensitivity index, which means that if a student visits campus, or if a student emails their enrollment counselor often, they may not get the discounts as other students, all things the same, demographics, grades, extracurricular. So that's just one tangible way of the data and things you do potentially negatively affecting you.
As the data seizure in the back end is showing the university that you're high needs, like you need more work, so I'm going to charge you more.
Or not necessarily high needs, but high interest, that they really want to go there. So maybe we don't give them the same discounts. And I'll just say, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, as long as the student's educated about the value of their data, right? and that doing these different things can have real world repercussions.
Yeah, and that could be in any sector, not just universities. You know, there could be price complexity behind all of Amazon and Walmart and all the major sites. You go shopping for something, and in the back end, they're sniffing that across the internet, and they're like, well, you need to buy queen sheets for your bed. Your sheet prices are all going to be higher. Like, we don't know. But essentially that's the price of data, right? Okay. So with cookies, you know, I think we could probably move on from here. We've just sort of demonstrated for the audience, like, sort of what the understanding is of cookies. Let's go to phishing. So phishing is this, you know, this is where the really nefarious stuff comes from, you know, foreign princes who are asking you to send money so you can win money and things like that. It's kind of wild stuff. So Wendy, I want to start out with you this time. You know, let's have this conversation, you and Brady, and then we'll come back to the others.
Yeah, so, you know, in a perfect world, everything would be software as a service, and you would have data sharing agreements, and you would be able to control everything within your district or your system. And that is where, that's where I kind of land, right? I wish we could do that, but again, teachers don't want to feel limited, because even if you provide them with what you think is best, they're still going to want to be creative and use their own ideas. The one piece that I'll mention that I don't think we've really talked about much is parents. And I know a district can't do everything, okay? But especially, William, as you were talking about the article that you wrote, you know, I always go back to, I don't think we have done a very good job as an industry educating parents on what all of these things mean and how their data is being used and how they're allowing their children's data to be used. And I just would love to see a way in which we could, because even phishing, right? The idea that someone gets a child's social security number and a birth date, that could really ruin that child's future significantly, especially financially. So that's a comment I'll make around that. And then it would be great, maybe, LeiLani, after we talk about phishing, maybe we can show you some of our content and how we don't have third-party advertisements in it, or when we do work with a third party, it's embedded within the curriculum. So the company actually has a contract with another company, for example, in order to protect student data.
Let's plan on doing that. Brady, I'm giving you a tee up to get ready to do that. Okay, so let's come back to, let's have William go first this time on phishing and what's happening in the scene. You're probably more up to date on the current scene in this arena than anyone else on the call.
Yeah, and I think we all understand what that is. But that's receiving email or phone call, etc., of someone pretending to be, let's say, your superintendent. I need these files right now. I need the student data right now. Can you give it to me? And then you give them the answer, and it turns out it's a bad person, right? You know, again, depending how SaaS involved you are, right? If you're using Office 365 email versus on-premise Exchange, a lot of the SaaS offerings do a pretty good job of preventing phishing. If not, though, that's something for the IT staff to look into, as well as, you know, some amount of user training. If something involves sensitive data or finances, or, you know, has a sense of urgency, you need to complete an action now, we train our users that usually is a good time to reflect, as it may be phishing.
Good. Good. Don, you want to go next?
Yeah, we've had this problem with the email, not the text or phone calls, because the way our system's set up. And like William said, it's typically the superintendent, human resources, or the principal of the school are the ones where the emails appear to come from. What our IT has done is now all external emails, because these, even though they appear to be from the superintendent, they're not from, so they're not internal. So all external emails now have this obnoxiously colored warning that this is an external email. Make sure you know who it's really coming from. And even that, we still had someone fall for it and provide information to what they thought was the superintendent. So education is huge, even if it comes along with this obnoxiously colored external banner saying, external email. But we've had this issue.
Okay, well, it can happen. Ivy.
And we had a lot of email examples, but then also some texting ones as well this past year. But it's, you know, when you have a school district website, all of that information is right there. You know, who's running the district, who's running HR, who are your building principals. And then, you know, if you want to get in touch with these people, here's their email addresses and all the teachers in the building. And so, you know, that makes it really easy for these people to get that contact information and to pull off scams like this, for sure.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, well, we need to get through the rest of these definitions. And I think I want to go next to having share screen from Brady about pop-ups, and then we'll get into these last few.
So a lot of the things, and I'll go back to phishing real quick, but with phishing, you know, we do have our internal proprietary software where we have messaging within the system. So there is no external messaging. There we go. So all the communication is nice and secure, and so it's internal. Nobody externally can then send a message trying to get that information. But pop-ups, for example, we partner with Discovery Education, and those are embedded within the platform. So the student moves on from, let's say, a learning object into a video. They don't go externally. There is an option to do that, but it populates right in the software in our LMS. And so the student doesn't see the rest of that website, and all those pop-ups, adware are filtered out based on those partnerships. You know, we have gizmos as well that are in the platform. And so they're interacting with that, that software, that video, and they're, you know, not seeing those pop-up ads or getting that malware because there's advertisements on the side. And so it's a great way to keep the kids in the system, keeps their data secure, keeps them secure, and ultimately in a good learning experience. So just
Well, thank you for showing us that.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah, it's too bad YouTube doesn't allow clean version.
Yeah.
Like that, yeah. Okay, perfect. All right, so moving on to the next definition, which is the social experimentation. This is essentially, you know, games put out there. And early on with the EduJedi, there was a big concern about that particular type of thing being out there, you know, where it's actually doing some sort of social experiment on kids. And this is almost now needed at the curriculum level training, where a teacher finds something and they're like, this is a great test. And they don't read the whole thing. And it's got some sort of racist or sexist question orientation. And it's like they're doing, the maker of it is really running a social experiment to try to find out how people respond. But that's more than just a security issue. It's actually, are you looking at what this thing is really doing? So it blends the tech side with the curriculum side. So let's comment on that. William, I want to come back to you first. Have you seen this?
Not a ton. I haven't seen a lot of our teachers in our LMS embed weird applications or games. I could certainly see how this is a concern, though, if it collects the student's IP address or asks them for their name or info. You know, maybe a good first step in this situation would be, does this have the ability to collect student data? And if it does, it may not be a good learning tool or a worthwhile learning tool.
Okay, Don.
I haven't been familiar with this, but now I'm worried because I encourage a lot of use of games in both science and math. And as a matter of fact, a lot of my summer program had like a quarter of it had game links and stuff. So hopefully I haven't helped this occur.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, one of the other issues behind this, and it's not stated, so I have to make that a notation of that to upgrade this particular definition, because it could be using questionable curriculum questioning, that because of the nature of the questioning, it's prejudicing students in some way. And a lot of times teachers are not necessarily testing designers, and they're just like, well, this is sort of a fun game, but they don't realize what's really happening behind it. So I'm coming back to you, Ivy, as both a curriculum and tech person, and then you, Wendy. That's the issue here with social experimentation. It's more than just the collecting of student data. It's the prejudicing of questions and possibly then prejudicing the student, right? Because of the nature of the question.
Yeah, I cannot think of any examples of this that I've seen either. But again, I think it would just go back to, making sure that you vet things, thoroughly, and reading terms of service and privacy policies, and then trying things out. I know that in my first year teaching, I surely wasn't, going through every single line of every single question that might be asked in a game that I found that I might have students play. So there's just, you don't know what you don't know. So again, it falls back on training our teachers and making them aware that this is something that is going on, that we on the tech side and curriculum side can do our job in vetting. But ultimately, if we're not blocking things for staff and they are wanting to try something out, and it's just an open web-based thing, that they would need to, do their due diligence on their part first.
Good point. All right. Yeah, and I think we took the example out of here intentionally because it was so obnoxious. It was like two people of this race walk down the street with one person of this race. How many people of what race? Why is that in there? Like that kind of thing, right? So just to give you an example. Okay, so let's go to Wendy. And then Wendy, if you could dovetail your comments on social experimentation right into stickers, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah, I will say when I read the definition for social experimentation, my brain immediately went to IRB and some of those examples in the past of how children have been harmed by research and how we now have processes in place to avoid that. And, I think, like Ivy said, it's so critical to vet, but it's also important if it is a partner with whom you work, even think about it when you're surveying students. So part of our product development cycle is we want feedback from students, from teachers, from districts, so that we can make the product better for our users. And, one thing that I'm really particular about is I won't send a survey to any of your students, for example, until my contact has had an opportunity to review the survey and to make sure it's gone through appropriate approval at the district. So I think, that's kind of where my brain went there, LeiLani, that is so important, like Ivy said, to really vet things, but even from your partners in software as a solution in that commercial grade content, you definitely still want to vet if they're wanting to survey students, for example. I was looking at my notes because you guys said some great things. The other thing it made me think about is a teacher may accidentally do this because teachers really aren't trained to design assessment questions, like you said, LeiLani. So there could be a lot of leading questions, for example, in assessment. So again, I think that's a training opportunity around validity and reliability. So that's what I'll say on social experimentation. And then stickers, as I read the definition of stickers, that was really new to me to use that term from that perspective. Of course, I typically focus on the instructional side and the pedagogy side. And so I immediately thought of stickers versus badges. And should we clarify that this type of sticker is very different than a sticker that is simply a badge without credentialing, for example? And I know Brady can show an example of stickers that our teachers give out, but I don't think that's how you mean it here in any way, shape, or form. So I'm really curious to hear the discussion here.
Yeah, I'm going to pass screen to Brady so he can start the share process. But I agree with you. I just put a note in here. We need to clarify what a sticker is versus a badge and probably show some images on here because stickers are sort of a corporate thing now that kids can share and they can have some nefarious things going on with them. Go ahead, Brady. Brady, I think you're on mute.
Unmuted. So here's an example of one that our teacher created, and there's different levels. This is a history teacher, so like you can be a historian, explorer, time traveler, and they're something that she gives out for exemplary work to encourage the students, as they go through the course to earn these various badges, and they are tagged to, they have a set of things that she's looking for within that work to be an explorer, to be a ruler, a discoverer. And so these are just some fun ways that she engages the students as they go through the history course.
It's more along the line of achievement badging but it's sort of touching in that realm of stickers, earning a sticker. Okay. Okay, good. Excellent. I'll take the screen back from you. Okay, so I want to go a quick round because we have only 8 minutes left. Starting with you, William, stickers and their hostility from coming out of the commercial realm as they click around on the internet.
Yeah, I haven't had a ton of experience with them, but I do know, for example, social media apps like Snapchat may use stickers or Bitmojis or clothing or all of that for purchases for stuff. So students can be purchasing these digital goods. But I guess I could see a way that clicking on a sticker could take you to a rogue URL similar to a malvertisement. So just something to watch out for, that just because something's a sticker and looks nice doesn't necessarily mean the URL behind it's nice.
Good comment. Okay, Ivy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't see it a lot with our students or our software because we do lock things down pretty well. But what I thought of was like on Facebook, how you have the filters and things, or the borders around, like frames is what they call it, for your profiles, your profile picture. And so, there's a lot of whenever schools closed down and there were a lot with teachers that, then every teacher had the frame that said, I miss my students or whatever it was, like that, which is like, oh, and then one person does it and then you see somebody else, and then everybody's wanting to get it. And it's a great sentiment, but it could be, you don't know who designed it and what's happening when you put that on your profile picture and that kind of stuff. So yeah, just something that is marketed towards people as being a fun, positive thing that, you have to be cautious of.
There's also the issue with stickers and texting, on your phone. They're very heavy on your network. They're big files, some of the stickers that you can put in there. And all of a sudden you can blow up your network and everybody's giving everybody stickers. All right, so coming back to you, Don, what are your comments on this?
I haven't run across any cases of, negative stuff with this. Doesn't mean it's not there, it just hasn't come to my attention. I guess I'm more concerned, like Ivy had said, teachers building sites or, graphics. Are they downloading stuff that could have it? Or I guess, a link URL copy with the image, and the teachers have no idea it's even there. But like I said, this hasn't come to my attention at all as happening yet.
Okay, all right. Well, we have a final round to talk about zombie armies and botnets. And then I also want to challenge us all to say, is there another word we need to find in here that isn't in the dictionary? So I'm going to start with William because he's, got some security certifications. So talk to us about zombie army botnets, and then if you can think of any other terms that we need in here, let me know.
Absolutely. So, the issues with zombies and botnets is more of a techie thing, right? That maybe an educator should be concerned about. But when you hear terms like denial of service or DDoS or, a website goes down, typically a botnet is how, where a hacker utilizes a bunch of infected systems to accomplish a goal like taking down a website. The big term I don't think we covered at all was ransomware. That's, what from a tech side schools are on edge about right now, where basically a virus will spread through your network and lock you out of your files unless you pay a ransom. And I mean, if you remember the Colonial Pipeline attack in the news, that was a ransomware incident and breach. So it's, what's on top of mind for me. I did want to take a point to clarify on that too. A big reason why ransomware is such a prolific problem is the value of digital currencies right now, such as your Bitcoin and Dogecoin, whatever crypto you choose to use, where now hackers have an anonymous payment system that has value, where in the past they didn't. So all of a sudden, there's a lot of money in being a hacker.
Good, we'll make sure we put this stuff in there. All right, so we're looking at final comments. We're 3 minutes down. So Ivy, what are your comments on zombie army botnets and any other definitions we need?
Yeah, like William mentioned, DDoS, when you have teachers complain about if the network drops or something like that, and then, we'll have someone say, yeah, it seems like it always goes down this time of day. And that can be, a telltale sign that you are, possibly going through some sort of attack, or they're trying to, feel out your network for an attack of that scale. And really just having a plan for not if that happens, but when it happens. So, a lot of schools have prepared for, emergencies and active shooter training and that kind of stuff. But, virtual attacks can be just as damaging on your school district. So having those plans in place and knowing who does what in the event that, you have a ransomware attack or a DDoS attack or anything like that, that's a breach of your data.
Good, I totally agree. All right, so Don, final comments.
I don't really have anything to say on the zombie army botnet. That happens at the IT level, and they just tell us not to, something's down, and they tell us when it's back up. But I guess what I want to iterate from my aspect as a curriculum supervisor is when it comes to digital citizenship and educating our students, a lot of teachers will sometimes feel that's the parents' responsibility. And I guess we have professionals at our school falling for this stuff. Parents are falling for this stuff. It's everyone's responsibility. I know it's hard to fit the whole curriculum in, but it is actually an important part of the curriculum, is not to just fluff it off to the homes, but to be active in educating everyone, our teachers, our students families, putting into place a curriculum of how to educate the students and putting in place a process for parent meetings and educational trainings so that we can all become more aware of this. Don't put it off on someone else. We need to all take a part of it.
Excellent. Yeah, good comment. Okay, so final comments. Wendy, I'm going to come to you. Brady, thank you very much, but I'm going to maybe have just Wendy summarize because we're at the top of the hour now. So Wendy, bring us home.
Well, I would just say on the zombie army botnet comment that I think we've all become more aware of DDoS attacks in education and healthcare since the pandemic, when we had so many students transitioning to online. And it's so critical to make sure that either within your own division or with whomever you're partnering, they have made those significant investments to prevent DDoS attacks and to prevent the exposure of your students' data. And I really think that's a lot of what today was about, was, how do you prevent these things from happening with student data? So thank you so much for allowing us to be part of the discussion. I learned a lot, so I appreciate it, LeiLani.
Yeah, thanks. So I think we all learned a lot, which is awesome. Thousands of other people are going to learn when we put the recording out. I'm going to remind everybody, we have activity K11 coming up this week on foundational EdTech leadership, what's basic and what's not so basic. This is basic information that everybody needs to know if you're running a school or a district right now. So please join us for that. And I want to especially thank all my illustrious panelists today. Ivy, good to see you again. And thank you so much. And Dawn, thank you so much. And also William, thank you so much. And if you get a chance, say hi to Ryan for me. Okay. And Wendy and Brady, thank you for your contributions. Until next time, this is LeiLani Cauthen, your host, signing off this EduJedi activity and hoping I see you on the next one, activity K11. Bye for now.